Hey, this is Stacia, and we are going to look at my round three game from the Ohio Chess Congress that was played in September of 2022. So at this point, I was sitting with two draws so far, surprisingly. I don't draw that often, but I had two. And now I had to face Scotty Robinson. So I faced him one other time in a tournament where he fell into some opening preparation basically and lost. But this time he has the white pieces. And well, let's see what happens. So, just a slight backstory. Scotty Robinson has been like in classes that I've taught, chess classes, at Menlo Park Academy. He was in like the intermediate class when I was there teaching. And now he's 1500. So, of course, I know him well. I think he's a great kid, and I actually do cheer him on every chance I get. But not when he's my opponent. Then I don't cheer as much. So let's see the game. D4, D5, bishop to F4. And I thought, okay, he plays the London system apparently. I wasn't sure what he was going to play. I kind of expected E4. But okay, I went knight F6, and now E3, and C5. So I like this approach against the London system because I'm immediately taking advantage of the fact that white hasn't fully occupied the center. And, we want to put pressure on D4. And we also want to open up the queen to possibly play queen B6. Why do we want to play queen B6? Because there used to be a bishop on C1 protecting B2, and now that bishop's not there. So queen B6 becomes a desirable move. So C3 protecting the pawn, knight C6. Now I play knight C6 for kind of a funny reason. The reason is if I go queen B6 and they go queen C2, I would like to play this move. And then, haha, if you take my bishop, I take here and your rook's trapped. And then they say, yeah, that's great. Checkmate. So I don't like that variation. So that is why I like to play knight to C6. Now, if we follow that same variation, let's say he plays knight F3. He actually did play knight F3. Now, if I go queen B6 and they go queen C2, I can go bishop F5. Haha. Take my bishop, please. I'm not sure this is like winning for black. I actually don't think it is. I'll ask the engine. Yeah, it's just like a little bit better for black. And that's probably mostly because of material. Because white will get some nice counterplay out of this still. But yeah, here there's no checkmate, right? Remember last time there was bishop C8 checkmate. This time it's protected. So that is why, just a little nuance I thought I would share. This is why I like the move knight C6 here. So, okay, he played knight to F3, so I went queen B6, and he played queen B3. Okay, so queen B3, I don't think it's a bad move or anything, but I also don't think it's precise, although I also think, to be honest with you, I think the best move is not knight F3. I think it's this move, because this kind of stops the queen B6 idea in my mind. Like after queen B6 now, like what am I really doing? I'm not sure. Like if queen C2 now and this, they can just take, right? Like I'm not trapping that rook, like, so white's just winning. So I actually think that knight D2 is probably the best move, but you can play different ways, of course. So after these moves, queen B3. So here's C4. This is the normal idea. Now the idea is these queens are staring at each other. Like, hey, open my A file for me. Please open my A file for the rook. And white's like, please, no, you open my A file for my rook. So, you know, no one should open any A file. But he did here. He took, I took, and he played knight to A3. Now, I just kept thinking the whole game, like, I'm entering the weird world of Scotty Robinson. I'm not sure how true that is. I thought his play was very strange, but also very challenging, very creative, and very direct. Knight to A3 is a move that I haven't seen that much, but it makes a lot of sense, right? So the idea is that I want to play B5. He just stopped it. But on top of that, he's going to play knight B5, right? Like that is a big hole in my position. No pawns can guard that. And then that threatens a fork, and that's kind of annoying. Like, notice how the bishop's on that square? So, like, I can't defend it once, gotta defend it twice. So, yeah, already after knight A3, I was kind of out of book, and I was like, okay, I've got a concrete problem here, and it demands a concrete solution. So, I came up with the move knight to A7, and I thought, I know this looks weird, but how else do you stop knight to B5? I'm not totally sure. I mean, I looked at some other variations, but I don't remember them now. So let's see what the computer would want. The computer says bishop F5 is most precise. Okay, I thought about this move, but then I would assume knight to B5. Okay, that's, you know, they're threatening a fork. Yeah, and here I thought about king D7. Is that really the idea? It can't be. The engine wants rook A5. This is the only move that gives black an advantage. That's very interesting. So we are allowing white to come into C7 if that's what they want to do. They can check. And now we play king D7. We're kind of like attacking the knight, so this bishop has to remain glued to it, but there's also knight A5 or knight H5 coming. This is a very interesting way to play, but I would not play this way without studying this first, because it looks a little too concrete, a little too weird. And I'm sure my coaches would be like, what are you doing? So, and I would be saying to myself, what am I doing? So I thought knight A7 was a little more natural. Let's see. Knight A7 is also a small advantage for black. So, okay, I found a good move. It's a decent move. So, okay. So he comes in. I actually expected this move. I mean, it's the opening, right? Usually you develop your pieces and castle. But I like Scotty's idea. I mean, he's basically saying, like, look, I've got a real threat. I'm going to take your B6 pawn. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to take your knight. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to play knight B5 and still fork you. And I was like, well, fork you. No, I would never say that to him. He's a sweet kid. All right, so after B5, I expected bishop B6. This is what he played. And I went E6. Okay. So I'm just trying to get my dark square bishop in the game. And here I thought, if he takes my knight, now I can take his knight. This is my plan. Because I think if I just take back, I don't like this. This doesn't look good for me. I don't think. He's threatening check. He's threatening my rook. I mean, I'll ask the engine. I mean, the engine still says that it's equal after rook to A5, but okay, he could play A4. Yeah, I guess he could do that. Cement the knight in the position. My rook looks a little bit silly. Yeah, this position just looks foreign to me. I've never seen stuff like this, to be honest with you. And I've seen a lot of chess games. Okay, so after E6, I think he saw my threat that I'm gonna, after takes, I'm gonna take his knight. So he played B4, another concrete solution. So makes sense, right? I cannot take the knight. So now once again, he's threatening bishop takes a7. But here I planned the move bishop to d7. I can just protect the pawn now. And if he wants to take, that's fine. And I was also very strongly considering this move because it counterattacks. But, you know, if I'm going to do this, I better know what I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, got to be careful, right? If you go here or here, you get forked. So you can't do that. So, like, I would like rook a3. If I could play rook a3, I would go into this. But you have to go rook a4, I think. It's kind of the only move that I see. And then they can check you if they want, or they can wait. And probably the knight's guarding the pawns. They'll probably just leave the knight there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, apparently black's winning here, according to the computer, but this is very concrete stuff. So I was trying to just play moves that are normalish, but also solve my problems. So e6, bishop d7. Okay, and knight to e5. Another concrete idea. So I think now Scotty's saying, I'm going to take your bishop, I'm going to take your knight, then I'm going to take here, then I'm going to fork you. So, you know, I can't just let him do that. But don't worry, I had an idea here. My idea was bishop c6. And now I'm guarding stuff, right? So, if he takes my bishop now, I can take with the pawn. The pawn guards this, and I get the classic diamond pawn structure, which I very much like. It's not really classic. It's kind of weird. But this did happen. And then knight to c2. Okay, so here I was starting to feel better because that knight is rerouting. It's probably the best idea, actually, because I'm actually threatening to move my knight maybe to c8. And then win that knight. So he saw this and played knight to c2. The engine says bishop c5 is best. So if you're going to avoid the discoveries, this is a better move, I guess. Because I don't really want to take here, I don't think. Kind of strengthens white's center a bit. They could play d takes c5, I guess. Or b takes c5. I don't know which one I like better, but I don't know, but in all of this, I have to feel like black's okay. At least okay. So, okay, takes. Knight c2. All right, and I went knight to e4. Just saying, okay, what would you like to do about your pawn? Doesn't look too easy to defend. So he went a4. And I think he's saying here that he's going to take my pawn. If I take with a knight, I lose my rook check. So that's pretty annoying. And if I take with a pawn, my knight's double attacked by the rook and the bishop, so I'll lose material. So that is pretty annoying. But here, I actually calculated this ahead of time, and I played knight takes c3. Okay, so I see the engine says this is a blunder. But, okay, I turned it off. Why on earth would this be a blunder? Let's have a look at it. So if here, did I have better? Is that why? Maybe I had better, because I don't see problems here. My whole idea was that after this, I take here, and my knight is guarded sufficiently. I thought this was fine. So let's see if there's something better here. Perhaps there was. Is knight c8 better? Maybe it's knight c8? Because I was thinking about this move a lot during the game. It attacks the bishop. Okay, so let's say the bishop backs up here. Yeah, this must be the reason why, because now I can take that bishop and then take on a4, right? I'd probably take with this just because it helps development. And then let's say they take here. I'm on this, I'm on this. I'm gonna castle, so I'm ahead in development. So I think black's winning. I'm gonna ask the computer. Yeah, it says -3. Okay, so let's see if this was the reason. Yeah, it says knight c8. Knight c8 is the reason. And it says after bishop c5, we actually go rook takes a4 immediately. Oh, I like it. It's with tempo. Sort of. It says they should take, though. Okay. Now we have a passed pawn. And yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to know what to do as white. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this, because the only move that makes any sense to me at all is this, which doesn't look like a good move. And that's just to blockade the pawn. Otherwise, you have to kind of just do that, I guess. Just awfully slow. And there's a passed pawn here, and black's going to do the same, and they're going to also capture here. So, okay, very interesting, but so apparently knight c8 was very strong there, but I missed it. But hey, it's a free pawn. Give me a break, right? Like, I like free pawns. I also like sacrificing pawns. Okay, so a5. I thought he might play this way, because like I was saying, here, I assess this as better for black, and the engine agrees. It's -1. So he played a5. I thought this is also possible. He does have a passed pawn now, you know, so that does make some sense. Got to be careful. And I went knight to a4. I just don't want him pushing that. Also, I take the bishop. Bishop b2. Okay, time to develop finally, right? It's move 17. Time to develop. So I developed castle, f4. Okay, so f4. I had a feeling that just based on the game so far, I kind of was getting the feeling that the most aggressive moves is pretty much what he's going to play. Like the most concrete aggressive move you can come up with. So I figured f4, and then I thought he'll try to go for f5. So I went knight c8 because that attacks the bishop. Now my rooks are connected, right? So this is a threat because my rooks I'm guarding. So he goes here, knight to d6. Okay. Yeah, my idea was that if I take that bishop, I mean, with a bishop or a knight, let's say I take with a knight. Okay, I thought if I do this, my knight is very strange. Like, he really can't do much. And that's not good because I need to move him to connect the rooks. Now, could I play this way? I mean, probably. But I also, I don't know. I don't like it that much. So I decided I would, try to harmonize as much as possible. Let's get the knight in the game. So knight g6. He took it, which probably makes sense because it's a closed position. Knights are better than bishops in closed positions. So I took, but this is my good bishop, right? So my pawns are on light squares, which means that my bishop is quite happy on the dark squares. Okay, f5. And I played knight to c3. Okay. It's a tempo move, attacks the bishop. I figured the bishop would move away. And I can always jump into this square. That looks like a pretty nice square. Might get that kind of play. But I wanted to do this and then take. I had a reason for this, by the way. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, I had a reason. I had some sneaky idea here. Not that sneaky, but something. Well, I wanted to take with tempo because now I'm on the bishop. I know that. I guess I was also thinking, I don't know. I don't remember what my idea was. But he took with the bishop. I went rook a7. Okay. Yeah, because guess what? I mean, I don't think I can allow this move. This diamond pawn structure is great, but it has an obvious weak point on c6. So if he wins that pawn, then my pawns are just going to fall apart. They're just going to all get captured. So I had to defend against bishop d7. Can't let him get those. So, all right. And then rook a3 was played, attacking the knight. So I went knight to a4. Yeah, I didn't think that this check really did anything for me. And the computer agrees. Like, he could even bring his king up, you know? Like, he could do this, get more active. And then I think my knight's just trapped. So, can't do that. Yeah, definitely. I saw that during the game. Knight a4. e4. Yeah, and g6. Okay. So, g6 I thought was an interesting idea. I was calculating here. I thought after g6, he could try e5. And then I thought after e5, I could even take here maybe, right? Because then if he takes, I take. Check. King h8. My rook is ready to come over. I've got f7 defended. Yeah, I was calculating stuff like this. So I thought here he might even be able to play this move. And then I could do bishop e7. Actually, I think I landed on bishop e7. I really wanted to play that one. Now his bishop would still be attacked. And then I thought rook g3. Pinning that pawn is possible. And then here I thought I might have this move. And I also thought I was just fine in general. So, like, even just king h8, like, threatened to take that bishop. So, okay, let's see if any of that. Yeah, g6, top move. Happy to see that one. Now, he doesn't have to play crazy. He could also just retreat, which he didn't. He took there, which I think is a pretty cool move. I mean, it's interesting because now if I take that bishop, he could actually take here. And I'm starting to get a little nervous because that's a passed pawn, that's a passed pawn. He can play here. Like, once he plays there, the knight comes in. Like he just might make a queen. You know, it really seems like it. So I was not willing to go into this. In addition, there's also rook g3 check. I mean, not yet because the bishop's guarding, but that could be a resource. So after takes, he played bishop g4. So I didn't take the bishop. It turns out that I can take it, though. I remember Michael Jolson said he would take the bishop. He said, this is nothing because you take it with the bishop. And this is nothing too, he said. Okay. Yeah, actually, I think I remember we wanted to play f4 here because f4 saves the pawn, stops rook g3, stops knight e3. Like, that is a pretty awesome move. We've got this stopped. Like, he could try to push forward now. These pawns are annoying, but I guess we are fine. I don't know. I just don't have enough experience with this sort of position. This is crazy to me. I don't know. But yeah, the engine agrees that black's winning. I mean, we're up a piece. So if we stop those pawns, we win, basically. Okay, and that was the best way to play. But instead, I just took here. I'm like, look, I don't need to go into these crazy sharp variations where white has chances, because I can take and I'm still better. That's what I thought, and it is true. Okay, so bishop g4, and I went knight b2. I'm going to try to improve my knight a bit. So he went there. And yeah, and I had to calculate this because I don't have a way to protect that pawn. Probably the only way I have is to bring a rook to the d file with this idea. But then I'm still going to have to reckon with stuff like this. And I wasn't quite sure how to assess it. I mean, I feel like black's okay, but I wasn't sure about that. So I was trying to find something else I could do, and I did find something. I thought, hey, you want to win my pawn? That's great. I'm going to target your b4 pawn and win that. So when he took here, oops, wait, this didn't happen. Yeah, I went knight d3 because now after bishop takes, I can take the pawn. Now, I did see that if I take with the bishop, this could be a problem actually, because I think he has rook takes d3. That's kind of annoying. I take the rook, but he takes here. He's on that pawn. He still has his pass pawn. Guess I could take it though. If I do that, he takes my pawn. I don't know. 2 pieces against a rook. Feels like I did something wrong. Like either white's better or they're at least equal is my assessment. So I didn't do that one. I took with a knight. Now I've got discoveries on the rook and I've got pressure here, and I thought this is all looking pretty good. So he takes the knight. It's a tempo on the rook, rook a2, and rook takes a5. If I take this way, I thought he might be able to play like this. And I don't know about that, right? Like, there is no rook a8 because he takes me. So I would have to counterattack, I guess. Something like this. I guess I'm guarding the pawn at the end and attacking that one. So it's probably good for black, but it's not like white has to do all not all those moves are forced. So after takes here, I took with a rook, not a bishop, allowing the pin. So takes. Yeah, and here I was quite pleased with myself because I have this resource of bishop e6, and I can take this pawn with check. And that's going to be important because, yeah, he goes here. And like, for example, I thought if I go rook b8, then he'll play bishop takes c4. That's annoying. I can't take back. He wins a pawn. So I saw that and I played instead bishop e6. Now it looks like the same thing, but I actually set a trap because I'll take here with check. There's no more pin. Then he'll move. Then I win the game with this. So I thought I was playing pretty well this game, and wait till you see what happens. Okay, so takes, bishop e6 takes, check, king f1, and here we are. Okay, so here I went c3. I want to save that pawn. That pawn's very important. I feel like it's the source, you know, of my advantage. I mean, even without it, I'm a pawn up. But with that pawn, I've got to be winning here. Got to be. There are some opposite color bishop endings where you can be 2 pawns up and still it's a draw, but I have to believe black's winning here. So king e2. And here I play king g7, and this is a blunder. It is a blunder. So if you want to pause your video and tell me what I should have played as black, go ahead and do so now. Yeah, the correct move is c2. c2. Let's queen, right? My students yelled at me. I analyzed this game with my students. Yeah, they yelled at me. They were like, that looks so obvious. Why didn't you play that? But, I mean, the reason I didn't play it, I feel awfully apologetic right now. But the reason I didn't play it is I thought white had some real counterplay on my f7 pawn. I honestly thought maybe they were going to coordinate here. And notice how it's also pinned. And I thought once they play rook b7, I'm paralyzed. I can't move my rook. And I was getting all wrapped up in that. So that's you know, seeing ghosts. That's what that is. And I also thought, so I even thought rook c8 here. This is the move I was planning originally. And I thought rook b7. And my nightmare is coming true. White's got sort of a bind over here. But even still, I mean, c2, right? Like, so I let my worries scare me away from this very strong idea of just pushing the pawn. So after king e2, you can just push. Because, you know, if they try to stop it with the king, for example, I mean, probably just rook c8, right? Now, if they try to get counterplay, we queen. So who cares about the counterplay? You know, that's a queen. So that's what I failed to see, is that this plan is faster, unfortunately. I also thought I was winning without playing crazy, which also may have thrown me off. Because you know what? If I would have found this winning move, I would have won the game. I didn't win this game, I'm sad to say, because I make a huge blunder pretty soon. So after king e2, king g7. Oh, wait, let me finish that variation for you. After king e2, c2 here. Rook c8. Okay, I don't see another move besides king c1. But here, yeah, we've got a dark square bishop. We can play check. This is over, right? It's just over. So, yeah, computer says mate in 3. But it's I'm up a queen. So, yeah, that was the way to go for sure. Instead, king g7, king here, bishop e5. Sadly, it's like the only move. Bishop f6 blocks my king and makes this bind even harder to get out of. That's why I didn't play that way. I went here. And here there's discoveries, which I saw. And in this position, I was like, okay, I think I got it, you know. I'm not pinned anymore because of king g7. I can go f6, h5. I think I'm going to, you know, just be in a good position. The pawn protects the bishop, etc. And I played h5, forgetting to play f6 from the calculation. So that is something I've got to watch out for. So sometimes I calculate a line and I move really quickly, and then I make a move that, you know, in my mind this pawn was here, and then when I looked on the board, that pawn's not there. It's just a very sad blunder. So I blundered a piece. I just blundered a piece. And here I almost resigned. I almost did. And I think I made a comment to my opponent. I was just like, you know, I was planning f6 and then h5. And then I just play h5 without f6. He's like, yeah, I do that too all the time. So, yeah, that was a nice comment by my opponent too, but okay. I knew he was winning, and I'm like, well, I can try to draw, right? Like, never resign, try to draw. So rook a5, king e7. I'm trying to break out of the bind. Now I'll just show you how this game finishes up. Gets the pawn, of course. Pawn takes. And I had a really cool idea, though, at this point. At this point, I was like, you know what? I think the only way I could draw is if I could somehow get it so that we trade these pawns and white only has a rook pawn left. And if they have a rook pawn and a light square bishop, that light square bishop cannot cover the queening square. So I just need to trade rooks. And if I can get that, like just a rook pawn and bishop versus my king, just my king, that's a theoretical draw. So that is what I was aiming for. And so you'll see that the way I play now is basically on that. So I was hoping to provoke that move because I thought I could take it. Okay, step 1 achieved. He has a rook pawn left, right? Step 1. Okay, f5. Here. Check. King g7. Now, step 2, in my opinion, is trade rooks. So he goes here. I gotta trade rooks. Rook f6. I thought for sure he knew what I was up to because he played this check and I was like, oh, he's not going to let me and I'm going to lose. So I block. He did trade. And now I do think this is a draw. I think it's a draw even if I have no pawns on the board. Yeah, like I do think this is a draw. So computer says plus 0.4 for white. I think that pretty much means it's a draw. So we just played. But if you play this against the computer, you can hold it. So I guess that's what I'll do. I'll just turn on the computer. Okay, so I'm playing the computer now, but I played this against my students as well to show them this is a draw. Hopefully I don't screw it up. Computer's pretty strong. So maybe I start by just putting my pawn on a dark square. Okay, well, the computer is drawing it really fast because now I take and it's over. Can't checkmate. So that was silly. Okay, thanks a lot, computer. I guess I'll just have to play white. Anyway, the idea, I'm not even going to show it. What you do is you put your king on h8 and they push their pawn and then you just go like this. King h8, king g7. If they ever control the g7 square with their king, then it's stalemate because this pawn is going to guard g8. And if they don't guard the pawn, you take it and it's a draw. So they have to guard the pawn. And if they ever guard g7, it's stalemate. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but whew, at least I saved the game, right? Horrible blunder. Thought I played a pretty nice game until that, just blundering a piece. But a fairly good save, so I'll take it. And that was my round 3. So I hope you enjoyed the analysis, and I'll be back with round 4.